Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes, really wherever our whims take us. Whim City, all aboard! One of the questions I get asked a lot is how exactly did I get into comics? A while back I did a video in full clown makeup about the first comic I remember reading, Witchblade, and how while it didn't start the collection there, it did ignite a fondness for the medium and made me think it was cool. A feeling that stayed with me and ultimately led to years down the road me purchasing my first trade paperback while I was waiting for my parents to pick me up from the university bus stop. But I was recently reminded that there was another comic. A comic that I loved. That was probably even more responsible for making me the comic book lover that I am today. And I had completely forgotten it existed. Until I read Catwoman, Guardians of Gotham. Oh yes, let me tell you the tale of how sexy Selina Catwoman is part of what put me on this journey to collecting and loving comics. It's part of why this channel exists, a link in the chain. But before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Join us on this comic book journey. If you're feeling so inclined, hit that little join button next to the subscribe button. It helps us produce more content. You get access to some behind the scenes features, emojis, and the like. Reviewing Catwoman, Guardian of Gotham, a comic that for me falls into the so bad it's amazing category, put me in the mind to try to find a way to approach the 90s Catwoman run. One that is oftentimes overlooked because of the art, which is very pin-up-esque and sexy. And some feel it's inherently misogynistic and dismiss the whole run. The run was cool, and I started trying to find an angle to approach it that wasn't just starting at issue 1. Although, I mean, I could have done that. This was a long run. It went 95 issues. Although there were changes to the creative team during that time, and I need to focus on the first part of that era, the Jim Ballen and Joe Duffy part. While I was doing my research, I kept thinking, why am I so focused on this? And then, while scrolling through Comixology, I came across the cover for issue 13. And it all came back. I've read this issue. I'd taken it from my dad, borrowed it, or more likely just seen it lying around and taken it to another room. I read that comic until it fell apart. I remember now having it in front of me and opening it and pages just falling off and having to gingerly put it back together. I thought this comic was the bee's knees. And so of course, when I saw this cover, it was like a lightning bolt and I had to pick it up again. And it was only $1.99, so that helped. Rereading it was an experience in and of itself. I thought it would be the perfect place to launch, I guess, a defense of comics that are now perceived a certain way that you never know what they mean to other people. That was poorly phrased, but I think you know what I mean. Hopefully we can at least open a discussion on how sometimes we can be a bit dismissive and assume an outcome for certain stimuli. Or heck, maybe it isn't that deep at all and we just want to look at some Catwoman number 13. Let's look at this issue. The Ballen and Duffy era of Catwoman was launched out of the Nightfall era of Batman, the period wherein Batman was replaced by Jean-Paul Valley after having his back broken by Bane. Catwoman began in 1993 and started off with Catwoman finding her way to be her own woman, this in a Bane-controlled Gotham. Right away it placed Batman in the rearview mirror. There were references to him and sometimes him or his supporting characters would cross over or matter. But Catwoman was really the focus, as it should be, it is her book. And that never felt forced. It never felt like they were struggling to find things for her to do. She stood on her own. She came across as competent, compelling, and yes, sexy in a 7 of 9 kind of way. Issue 13, Catwoman attacking some deep sea divers, looking vicious with a harpoon narrowly missing her. Child me thought that this was amazing, and I still feel that way looking at it. It's probably not as great as my nostalgia lenses are making me think it is, but man, makes me want to read it and more comics and never stop. Catfish. The story recaps events from last issue and lets us know we're at the tail end of a heist gone wrong. At the time, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know who anybody was except for Catwoman and Batman, and Robin. Even in that one panel where they show the events of Night Quest that had crossed over into her book at that point, I didn't even recognize Nightwing. I had no idea who that was. Oh, to be young once more. Leave 10-year-old me alone. The Night Quest panels are from the end of the Night's End arc, that being when Batman reclaimed his mantle from the crazed and violent Jean-Paul Valley, who had done a lot of damage to his reputation. That's a lot of damage. This part was interesting as it didn't treat Selina as besotted by Batman, but rather viewing him as an opponent and someone she needs to be wary of. We learn about the people she's trapped atop the bridge with after the helicopter she had hitched a ride to during these Night Quest events crashed. We have Penn Selkirk, a munitions broker who's stolen prototypes for a device she wants. He was holding an enabler, a cyber chip that she wanted to steal. When all this went down, he threw it into the river. She does not appreciate. See, people panic when crossovers burst in. They don't know what to do. They start throwing things. The police arrive and assume Selina took the men out, much to her annoyance. 90s Catwoman always had a worse rep than what she actually did. Not that she was an angel, but people would always assume the worst about her. That also happened in the the Catwoman Vampirella Crossover. Oh yes, Catwoman Vampirella Crossover. So despite hating water, she leaps off the bridge into the depths to escape. We use a dive to tie into her backstory and to some of the supporting characters that are in this book. It involves a circus. You know DC never shies away from a good circus backstory. One of said members of the circus is her love interest. She wants the Enabler to help aforementioned love interest who lost the use of his legs in a car accident. Catwoman had a ton of her own supports throughout this series. It really was her own little world. Child me did not know who any of these people were, and yet I read on. She's helped from the river by her crew and has an interior of a car far too nice for that many cats roaming around. She figures the chip isn't lost yet, that Selkirk wouldn't have thrown it away without being able to track it, so they just need to set up a trap for him. Rupert and Jeremy are old friends. Nice kids, with a little streak of larceny. The plan was to pay other people to get wet. I never counted on a sunken treasure this important. So they dive down and we get several panels of Saw's dialogue as they search and find what they were looking for, but also get attacked. The cover was not a lie. Underwater fight! They also do a purpley effect on the blood, which is, I assume, because the water is so murky and polluted, but also so we can get away with showing said blood. And that way we can keep our rating. Suck river sludge, coward. However, Catwoman finds herself ensnared in a net. It's Selkirk, and he wants that Enabler. He's been bailed out by a woman that we saw earlier at the hospital who was supposed to be an ally, but has had a face heel turn, and now she's in it for the money. She's also far too nicely dressed for the boat part of this heist. I mean, it's fine to be extra and in your finery, but you could fall into the water, and then you will not look so fine. Selina throws the case at him and saves her friends who he'd thrown overboard, but she reveals that she's not done yet. All of this, a distraction. She had actually replaced his driver, and so while he thinks he can just get away scot-free, that driver just stops the car and she can walk up, open the door, and get the case and her Enabler. By the time I acquired it, Selkirk had realized the Enabler wasn't ready to turn human warriors into cyborgs. He planned to spread a few rumors and cheat his over-anxious buyers. But weapons usage wasn't what the Enabler was designed for. So the doctors who truly designed the Enabler are able to implement it for her love interest. Hooray! The end. I have no idea why Kid Me loved this so much, but I can take some guesses, so I'm going to. There are many things that you would assume would turn me off. The fact that I had no idea who anybody was plopped down mid-plot. But I loved it. Looking back on it now, it's a decent issue. It's nothing amazing, it's fine. Selina has a solid voice in it, it's succinct, the plot is easy enough to understand, it picks up all the threads you need to follow it. It's nothing too deep. Gotta get the thing, she gets the thing helps her friend, which I remember feeling very, very positive about as a 10-year-old. However, what I remember the most, the echoes of what I remember feeling, is how cool I thought this looked. I thought the art and the look of Selina was amazing. It's why I kept coming back to read it over and over and over again. The whole thing just had a vibe for me. The cheesecake completely flew over my childhood. It just imprinted in me this idea that comics were cool and they were artsy and fun. And I guess it just kept being reinforced, and well, here we are. Now here I am trying to convince you that they're cool, which is probably making them seem really uncool. Greetings, fellow kids. I say it all the time, but I felt this was a really good way to illustrate that every comic is someone's first, and you can't predict what comic that's gonna be or how it's gonna hit somebody. It may even be a work that you would assume that the person would not enjoy, but you really never know. I don't know, I just kind of think that's exciting. Who am I kidding? It was fun to stroll down memory lane, and I didn't have other people to tell this to, but I thought you might appreciate and have had maybe a similar experience yourself. I don't know if I'd be the same comic lover I am today without Cheesecake Selina and Witchblade. Maybe, maybe not. I don't live in the reality where that didn't happen. Maybe that Sasha has a makeup channel or something. Ooh, maybe that Sasha actually does the manga channel. So I want to put forth a question to you, one that I have asked before, but we've grown a lot since then, and that is, what comic got you into comics? And have you had an experience like this, where you suddenly remember a comic that you absolutely adored, but you'd pushed out of your mind for, you know, brain space and life things? Share all your thoughts down below, and while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things, like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.